From the 809 Restaurant and Lounge in the heart of Inwood, New York City, welcome to Inwood Artworks On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home in what we affectionately call Upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we are turning our spotlight on visual artist Takashi Harada. Takashi is a Japanese painting Nyonga artist born in a small porcelain-making town, Aritasaga, in Japan. After completing the PhD program of the graduate school at Tokyo University of the Arts, he was granted a fellowship to study overseas by the Japanese government in 2005 and has been exhibiting his artworks in Japan and the US collectively for over 30 years. Working outside of Japan has allowed him to explore his Japanese identity and also given him the opportunity to contemplate the connection between humanity and other natural elements while collecting images of nature in other countries. He is represented by Scott White Contemporary Art in San Diego, California, and has had many solo and group shows here in Inwood, including a solo exhibition at the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum in Inwood in 2018. Takashi is one of our favorite local artists, and we are thrilled to spread the word about his work and put a well-deserved artist spotlight on him on our podcast today here on Air. So Takashi, welcome to Inwood Artworks On Air. So good to see you in person, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, pretty good, I think. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Beats the alternative, right?
Yeah. Very surprised without mask and then in person.
Yeah, it's nice. So this is our first kind of collective interviews we're doing without masks.
Yeah.
It's like it's new to us too, and it feels positive, right? It feels good.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have it in my pocket here, but it's really wonderful that so we can do these interviews in person and without masks because we're taking the right responsible methods of getting vaccinated and taking care of our community.
Yeah,
which is hopefully what we do within Inwood Artworks is trying to build stronger ties within our artistic community and greater community.
Yeah. Right.
So thanks again for being representation of that as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Sure. So we might as well talk about it. It's the elephant in the room. It's a character in everyone's play these days because it has to be. Everyone has been affected differently by the pandemic.
Right.
So we have to acknowledge it. And so how did it affect you and your work? And also, did you find the social isolation, particularly early on, until now where things are opening up, that allow you to focus more on your work, or was it inhibiting? What was it like for you during this long journey of call it social quarantining?
Yeah, besides growing beards and then growing hairs.
You look dashing, by the way. You look really good. I feel like you should be in like a spy film from like the 1970s.
Behind the masks, so it doesn't matter. So, but before the pandemic, actually, most of the time I'm actually in my home, working home, and then not so much going out, so it doesn't so much change to me than my life, and then but of course, it's really showing the news, and then really actually by myself, I got the COVID the March last year, the beginning of the pandemic. That before the kind of New York is on pause. Just
right.
Before
you got the COVID early on, right?
Yeah. So early March. So I just only had the fever, high fever, no taste change, no smell change at all, but the high fever.
Okay.
And then lasted the fever is actually stayed like a couple of days, and then but almost like 2 weeks I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Just only staying in a bed or something. So.
Okay.
So after that, and then I was watching the news, and everybody's gonna happening, what's happened to us, and then that is very scary to me also, and then of course I need to think about what art is, and then during the pandemic last year, and then still right now, and then what's the meaning of the art for the society, for the peoples, and also what the creation means to our life. So that's the biggest question for as an artist, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, until the time actually, I was just doing for my life for the painting as a painters, and then that was even think about it, anything about for the meaning so much deeper. But the last day was really, really impacted that thought. So then, of course, it's not like a immediate necessary. Obviously, it's not necessary to the life, and then not so much people buying the artworks in the last year. And then, but I thought that art is a really, really fundamental elements of the human life. That's probably the beginning of the communication with the people. So so that actually was really come back to me as an artist during the time. Yeah, that was a kind of impact for me.
Yeah, I mean, particularly because nature is such a big part of your work.
Right.
And so I could see that could be really hard on you.
Yeah.
But also, like, to your point too, we are such a global community, right?
Yeah.
And like it really shows us our relationship to nature, our relationship to each other,
right?
And how we should relate. Well, should subjective, I know, but but what are the consequences of relating to each other?
Sure. The human is at the part of nature, of course.
Yeah.
And then that the nature is really origin of us, and then we can think about how they are related to each other. They are, of course, they are competing each other for survival, but at the same time, they are helping each other as a community.
Yep.
So then that's really kind of reflect human life too.
Mm-hmm.
So my theme of my paintings and then artworks is that the memory of the people's memory and of being the natures, and then at the same time that the kind of construction. I mean, how we are connected each other. That's my point actually. So that I create the paintings or artworks not only for the beautifully, but for the kind of I really put in the kind of scientific view to the paintings.
There's a cultural anthropology to your work.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I've worked with you a few times. For those of you who don't know, Inwood Artworks has had Takashi a solo show pre-pandemic, and also as part of other group shows.
Yeah.
And what I've there's a social cultural anthropological capture of what he has in his work, and I think it's really it is aesthetically pleasing to the eye,
right?
Which I think may be the first punch, and then the second punch would be it's an encapsulation of a memory of a time that existed, right?
Right.
And it's very wonderful. If you remember, you and I had spoken before the pandemic, because we haven't seen each other in a year and a half, really, about what a virtual gallery of local artists would look like as some kind of sense of a collective online showcase for their work, outside of their own personal web pages, which artists have. Everyone has their own personal web page. But we were trying to figure out as a community, Takashi, Eva Nikolova, there's a whole bunch of other different local artists that kind of came together. We're all thinking about, what would this be like having a communal gallery, kind of like a local neighborhood online gallery. And we tried a couple of search engines and we tried a couple of platforms, I should say, not search engines, platforms, to figure out what that is, and it just didn't take. It's like having your own Facebook page and posting photos, or Instagram or Pinterest, or whatever. I mean, that's as good as anything. It was a moot point. There was nothing. Why limit it, right, to a collective? And who knew that a few months later, we'd be thrust into an only virtual world.
Right.
And where the only place visual artists could be able to formally exhibit their work would be online, not in person. Because we all decided that there's really no more certain thing than you're not using a filter, using your own eyes to witness the work itself. But boy, how times have changed. And fast forward to now, where the majority of the population is vaccinated, hopefully, close to it, I hope, here in New York City. And in-person exhibitions seem possible again. So I'm curious, where do you want to go with your work as an artist? Because you've been living with the Zoom culture, the webinars, and we have learned that you can reach people outside of our local community by putting things online. And yet, you don't have the same experience having your exposure to a work of being in person to have that emotional effect to perhaps make a sale. So I'm just curious, where do you want to go with your work as an artist, like exhibition-wise?
Yeah, actually, luckily, I was having the solo show last year in Chelsea.
Right.
And then that was planned before the pandemic, and then actually it happened. Supposed to happen in April, so that the installation date was really affected by the closure. So then we couldn't really even install the paintings, and then went to the virtual exhibition for the
when virtual,
social, and then. And extending the dates was extended because of after that was the council. So then my exhibition they extended, and then the eventually I got like 6 months of my solo show in the gallery.
6 months solo show in Chelsea, unheard of.
And then most of the time it's the virtual, and then finally then during the summer I guess and I installed my painting the physically. And then the physical show was like 2 months or so.
So it was a 2-month physical show after all the virtual work. Okay.
So of course, it's a totally different events. Even in the world, actually the exhibition, but the virtually is of course they can reach out to the all worldwide. Whoever who can search it, right? So then, but my paintings actually also has the physically has a grains of the pigments, and then it just kind of changed during the daytime, and then nighttime just change the colors, and also that's a really personal experience is really, of course, it's a very important part of my work, my work. So that's that elements cannot show in the virtually, unless you have a really good resolution of the image and then the video things and that got together.
So that didn't work virtually.
They didn't work. So I really wanted to show in person for my works, but it has both good and bad things, and for both kind of platform.
What do you think we can take away with us that worked from the virtual exhibition? Like what piece of it do you think was useful outside of bringing your work obviously to people in different corners of the globe? Like, did you get sales? Like, was it helpful to you? And
surprisingly, it's the sales was happened right before, right after the openings. I mean the virtual openings. And then nothing in the in person because nobody was actually coming during the pandemic.
Nobody can come during the pandemic.
So if we had a kind of the traffic, maybe there's a sale. I hope, hopefully. But in the real life, I didn't. So I don't know. It's gonna be from now on. Probably we have a kind of double standards, virtually and then in person, physically. So that's gonna be then in the person. Of course, is an appointment only, or maybe I don't know. But so virtually, we can have more sophisticated images to show much closer look, and then more like more realistic images for putting on the virtually. So totally we can have double standard.
Yeah. There's no sense that we have to choose by any means. Yeah,
no
I
need
agree.
to. Right.
Very good. So if you wouldn't mind, I would like for you to share about, you touched on it already, but like the prevalent role of nature in your work.
Right.
We already talked about the actual placement of like the meanings inside of it, but how you find your inspiration for it. Like some people paint portraits, some people do landscapes, some people are abstract, and the list goes on and on. And I would like for you, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you choose to work with sumi ink a lot.
Right.
And acrylics to create and illustrate your images. And so I feel like artists, it's very personal when you're choosing what you're using to illustrate your works.
Right.
So I'm just curious how that links to your finding your inspiration. So it's kind of a two-part question. I'm sorry if I'm being a little bit vague. Finding your inspiration and the ability to express that inspiration through your chosen materials.
Right. Yeah.
Is there significance to it?
Yes, subject. Actually, I was the grown area kind of mountainside and then the very countryside of the Japan's, and it's lots of the natures. I really play around in the natures. That's the kind of my image kind of stuck in my head.
Yeah. What part of Japan? The countryside?
It's a very southern part of Japan. It's in the Kyushu Island,
Okay.
and then very small town, and then surrounded by really kind of mountainous kind of small town.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then of course every day I'm playing around and then seeing the natures in my head, right? I mean, I have a stock image in my head, and after that during my life, of course, I went to Europe and Canada or somewhere else, and then I really stock up those images too.
Right.
And then mixed match, and also I took some photo images and then make it to my actual visual stocks in my computer, right? So I really kind of mixed up those kind of images to make it one artworks.
The actual physical images you took.
Yeah, physical images too. And
like
then,
photography-wise, otherwise,
Yeah. And then I'm going to find those kind of scientific elements in it. And then, of course, that the kind of maximum kind of, what do you call it, max view and then minimum view. I mean, like a
zooming in and out of the views.
Right, and then those kind of branches shaped looks like the vein or something like that. Yeah, those kind of double image onto my paintings.
Yeah,
that's I believe that those kind of the composition will bring back people's memories, and then put it to really affect our mind to work to make us calm down. Actually, my mentally can calm down, and then that I believe that coming time will affect our next days or our life. I mean, when you woke up next day in the morning, your mind's gonna be really kind of laid back and then stay really calm. That makes you not too angry to the other person, right? That is gonna be a kind of domino things gonna happen. Eventually, world peace.
Right.
My eventual the goal is the world peace.
Right.
So yeah, that's my themes, and then
Gotcha.
also the material things. Actually, the Nihonga paintings is used. Of course, I use the acrylic too, but the sumi ink and then natural rocks, crushed rocks, and those really natural elements itself. And then one of the paintings is made of the paper, is the tree fiber, so and then natural rocks, and then the glue is actually the animal skin glues, and then all consist of the nature itself.
Yeah.
And then if you throw it away, it goes back to the nature.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm taking those kind of elements from nature and
Right.
put it to my artworks. And then I believe that those elements has a power itself to show enough to you make it to come down.
Well, it's evidently very powerful in the works you create, I think, anyway. I think they're very
yeah.
powerful myself. Well, thank you again for answering that
Thank
question.
you,
It wasn't an
yeah.
easy question, but I was very happy you were able to answer it. So you've been featured a few times through us, as I said,
Right.
throughout different times. And there is not, much to my chagrin, a gallery space uptown.
Right.
Except virtually now, here and there on artist web pages and things like that. The median income is around, for those who don't know about Inwood and Washington Heights in general, the median income isn't incredibly high for families. It's like around, I think it's around 45,000 or so,
Oh, cool,
maybe a
cool.
little less.
Yeah.
It fluctuates. So we don't maybe have a lot of people. Because people think about going to galleries, they think that you're going to spend thousands of dollars, it's like that. But I disagree. I think you could spend maybe a couple $100 on a
Right,
good piece
right.
or so, and or less, even depending on what the artist is willing to pay for it and to sell it for. So it begs the question of this conundrum of like, we don't have a lot of people here who are high rollers per se. We don't have a lot of people coming uptown because
Right.
it is the end of the subway line on the A train. And if you surpass us on the 1 train, you're going way up to the Bronx, which
We need to promote this
well,
area too.
that's the thing. It's like, so what do you think? I'm curious from an artist's point of view. You have my point of view of what it'll take to build. What does it take to build a sustainable gallery up here? What do you think?
Yeah. Of course, we are talking about it before and then
Yeah.
now too. And then I'm thinking about that all the time, actually. Then even the Chelsea galleries, of course, the rent's high, and then all the economics gonna be. We need to balance.
The overhead is tough. The
Right.
overhead is a burden, obviously.
Yeah. So I was thinking that kind of multiple kind of purpose area.
Yeah.
Not only the galleries, but of course, we have a gallery space can be turned to the working space for the community artists, like co-working or like a woodworking with some kind of necessary things we can work. Maybe we can rent kind of equipment here, like a table saw or any kind of big stuff, or maybe a ladder or any kind of things.
Right.
We can store it, and then we can work during we don't have a gallery, the show, and then maybe. No, just one day I need to some kind of cut this kind of big things. Like I can go there and then maybe paying that maybe that kind of membership fee or maybe one-time fee with the kind of insurance, maybe or kind of deposit something like that. That's gonna be, and then it doesn't need to be so much bigger ones. I mean, like one starting smaller space, and like a half maybe kind of really clean gallery looks like gallery, and maybe can couple with the tables, and it can be workspace in the back, something
Yeah.
like that. That can be probably have a sustain that the funds.
Yeah. Like a half studio space,
Yeah,
half,
kind of.
half exhibition
Yeah,
space
not so
kind
much
of thing.
artists. We have a lot of artists in here.
We
and
certainly do.
Yeah. So not all artists have a big space. They have a
Correct.
to make it a big.
Maker
workhouse.
space is important.
Right.
Or studio space is important.
Yeah.
And to be able to find it, to be able to
Yeah, my own is like a 1 bedroom, like a sleep, work, eat. Only that, right? So
sleeping on top of your workbench,
yeah,
pillow next to your
something. Yeah,
paints.
sometimes too. Yeah.
Well, I understand
So
that.
yeah,
I
that
hear ya.
can be happen. I think.
Well, I didn't ask you for the whole answer, but I agree with you. I think there's some kind of like quasi makerspace, community space oriented problem to be solved, and I think it's going to take. Yes, I think it will take a landlord who's
Right.
artist friendly.
Right.
I think having earned income coming in consistently is important because I don't feel like a gallery by itself just exists. Like it
Right.
needs to be a living, breathing space. Like we had the live, music and dance and opera and
yeah.
community events and heck, we even had a wake. we had a lot of things happening.
And
there.
they're having the artworks like maybe less than $500 all the time, like the small works or
Exactly.
prints or something.
Yeah, I think the word is accessible. Like make prints,
Yeah.
whether it's photography or acrylics or whatever. Make it accessible to people, and then of course you can have big ticket items. No one's saying you can't.
Right.
But I think it's important to know your audience, know your community, and know what they're hopefully ready for and not ready for to support.
Right.
You know, it's a symbiotic relationship. So I think that's. Yeah, I think we're on the cusp of it, though. I think we're almost ready, right? I hope we are.
Yeah.
I hope we are. It's my hope. I'm trying to stay positive. So, Takashi, we're coming out of this thing now. We've been to the past. We're in the present. Where are we? What are your plans for 2021? Do you have any anything you're planning on presenting that you've been working on during the pandemic that you can share possibly in the future?
Yeah, not particularly have a show planned, but just continued paintings, and then the one thing I did that kind of big paintings last year for the show and my solo show, and I'm gonna continuing that makes one as a series
Okay.
for the other like a 4-season series.
Right. What is that series called?
It was that's just 4 seasons. Last year I
Four
did kind
seasons.
of cherry blossoms, and then the next time next things I'm making that kind of summer things, and then maybe autumn themes, and then the winter themes. I will make the 4 seasons, like
Okay.
big paintings, and then already we have passed like a half a year. So then
It's amazing. It's yes,
right,
it's amazing
really,
how this year is flying by.
yeah, we are seeing the summer already. So.
Oh gosh, it's summer. I know it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Well, you have a big fan in us and your work, and whatever we can do to support you, please let us know.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely have a gallery. Yeah.
We'll figure it out somehow, some way.
Yeah.
There's got to be some empty storefronts coming available. You know.
Yeah.
Well, Takashi, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us on this episode of Artist Spotlight. Are there places we can send people? Like, do you have a website you can tell people where to go to keep up with you and your work?
Yeah, the website, my website, and then takashiharada.com, and then also my Instagrams, and then I have another kind of project in Instagram. So not only my paintings but the photographs.
And is it Studio Takashi on Instagram?
So Takashi Harada is my main Instagram for my paintings.
Okay.
But I have the screen. It's a kind of screenshot of the Instagrams. Other people's Instagrams. That's my project. It's called Tarada Kashi, THA. I don't know. There's a link in the
All right.
main page. So
But it's through the Studio Takashi Harada
yeah.
Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, we'll put that link, or at least mention it
Okay,
in
thank
our
you.
description page of this episode, okay?
Thanks so much. Yeah.
My pleasure, my friend. It's always great to have you. So thanks to Takashi Harada for joining me on this special Artist Spotlight edition of Inwood Artworks On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and visual artists of all stripes who make their home here in Upper Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show us some love right now by rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcasts. It really helps, and we appreciate you sharing it with your friends. Many thanks here to our friends at 809 Restaurant and Lounge at 112 Dykeman Street here in Inwood for hosting us, and to HideSites.com for local uptown promotional support. Be sure to follow us at Inwood Artworks on our social media channels to keep up with all that we do, including the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, pop-up art galleries, live performances, and so much more. You can support On Air and all our programming by making a tax-free donation at inwoodartworks.nyc/donate. This program is supported in part by funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, and in part by a grant from New York City and Company Foundation with partial support from Manhattan Borough President Gale Brewer. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Artworks On Air.